Joining me now is the Nationals leader, David Littleproud. David, good to see you. We just heard there from Alex Rivchin, who welcomed that the Attorney-General and Foreign Minister both there in Poland, in Krakow, for this commemoration. Alex just made the point that he hopes that it's entirely appropriate they're there, but he hopes that Penny Wong in particular understands what Israel is trying to achieve on a deeper level. Do you agree with that?
I do, and I think it's about what's happening on the streets of Australia. I think Australians don't feel safe anymore when they see their cities burn and they see the hate that's been permeated through the Middle East, transported to Australia, to the streets of Australia. Let's get back to first principles here. The Israeli government is defending its people. And if you put this in the context that if a similar act that happened on the 7th of October happened here in Australia, the Australian people would expect the Australian government to hunt down the perpetrators until they are all captured or eliminated. And if there were hostages, they would expect Australia to hunt them down, those perpetrators, but actually get back those hostages before any ceasefire was undertaken. So I think Israel has been put in a very difficult situation where Hamas has hid behind civilians in a war when the Israeli government is trying to get back their own citizens and to make sure this doesn't happen again. Something I think the Australian people would expect of their government if it happened to us, and what we would do. And in fact, what we did do after the Bali attacks, if you cast your mind back, we did go into Indonesia and we hunted down those that perpetrated those attacks and we brought them to account.
Yeah, just on the ceasefire issue, that has happened in concert, getting the hostage back and the ceasefire. So Penny Wong's not exactly at odds with what Israel has done, and that deal that has been done reluctantly with Hamas, wouldn't you agree?
Well, I think Penny Wong's earlier statements around asking for restraint of the Israeli government when they had over 100 hostages held by a terrorist organisation, when they were under attack by not just Hamas but other terrorist organisations in other countries, I think shows that Penny Wong was out of step and showed her own personal bias rather than what you would expect from a foreign minister. And when you have Israeli members of parliament criticising the Australian government about our stance, then you have to ask questions about Penny Wong allowing her own personal preferences overtake what is good foreign policy and what is right. Yeah.
If I can just put to you, David, that at the time she called for restraint, there was some there was wide reporting of how many children were being killed at the time. Are you saying that was just a personal grievance she had? Was she not right to express some concern about the numbers of children in particular that were being killed?
We're all worried about the number of civilians, but when you have a terrorist organisation that is hiding behind civilians, you have to understand the complexity of the situation on the ground and how Israel were trying to deal with it. This wasn't a normal conflict where they were running around in uniforms and had army barracks away or storing their weaponry away from the civilian population. These animals were putting them in hospitals and near civilian population to try and use them as a human shield. What sort of human being does that? And Israel were searching for their citizens and defending their country. And I think the complexity of the situation on the ground, we don't like to see civilian casualties in any way, shape or form. No one does. But you've got to live in the real world about the threat that Israel was under. And again, I take you back. If Australia was under this threat, what would the Australian people expect of the Australian government in getting their citizens back and eliminating a future threat to civilians in our country?